Hey everyone, today we're looking at a piece that I'm working on for Michael Cooper's universe, the Aeon 14 timeline and extended universe. And I wanted to write a piece that had a little bit more of an orchestral feel than what I've done for him in the past. I know his tracks always have an orchestra, and they always have the the backbone going on of the orchestra, but they also have this really driving, almost rock kind of feel, guitar solos and drums and things like that. Nothing wrong with that, but I wanted to go back to my roots with something and see if I could kind of get the same sort of feel with more of just an orchestra. So I came up with this piece. I'm going to start it sort of at the beginning when all the other instruments come in, and so you're going to get a feel for what the melody is here. Before we jump into what we're actually talking about today, which is organizing and creating a cello line that sounds and feels real. So here's the piece, at least the melody with some harmonic structure beneath it. Get this idea, is kind of the main melody line. It's hidden in there. I haven't done any mixing on this stuff in here yet, so it's kind of thick harmonically, which I don't necessarily like. I want to open it up a little bit, let it breathe, and then of course you notice a lot of it is not quantized, which means it's not lined up mechanically. It's really just organic in there, which is good and bad. It makes it a little bit fuzzy, a little unclear. But again, that's not the point. The purpose of today's video is to show you some of what I've been working on with this solo cello. So I got a new cello library. It's actually the Chris Hein Solo library. So it's got violin, viola, cello, and bass. I believe there's bass in there. Maybe it's just two violins. But the point is, these are all solo instruments that Chris Hein's company has gone through, sampled, and then made extremely playable. I really, really enjoy playing his pieces or his instruments. What we want to look at though is this cello line. So I recorded the melody. I'm going to solo it so we don't get anything else in there. But this is just the cello, the solo cello from Chris Hein, and you can see I've got some modulation data in here that controls some of the X fade, the vibrato that he's playing, and I've got a key switch. I'll explain what that means in just a minute if you're not familiar with those, but it's essentially just telling the cello to play. I think it's like sustains or legato or something like that. So here's a listen to the melody just on cello. And it repeats. So it's good. Like you said, it's a beautiful instrument. It's been recorded extremely well. I didn't even really do anything with the different mic positions that are included. I don't even know if there are different ones included. I just basically left it as is and played it out of the box. So I've got my keyboard over here. I don't know if you can see it, it's off screen, but so it's literally just playable out of the box like that. It sounds like a cello, as it should. I can play with some modulation to change the vibrato that the player is using. One of the things you'll notice though is that the articulations, the way the bow is striking the string, is not changing at all. It's literally just the same style, the same articulation the whole time. In this case, like I said, I think it's sustains or something like that. I'll pull it up here and we'll take a look. But this is what I wanted to get to. We're going to crack open the solo cello library here and see exactly what the articulations we have that are available. I'll push it over so I can see a little bit better. Go in here to the overview, and then we can see the different, there's a ton of key switches in here that are available to us. So for example, if we go down here, so right now we're on D0, which is the dynamic expression long, is the name of the articulation we're using. If we were to change that to D sharp 0, that key switch, we'd now be in the lyrical vibrato articulation. Subtle change, but a big difference when you're actually key switching between one note to the other. It makes a big difference. So it was a little bit lighter, not as heavy on the bow. It's not pushing down as hard. C sharp 0 gives us just a general sustain. It plays with the mod wheel. So there's no legato in that. One note to the other. It's just two notes. Da da. Whereas if you were to get something like a, let's see if we can find a long. We had a long on there before. Let's see, is that different? Oh yeah, I think so. What Chris Hein has done is actually put the legato on the sustain pedal. So you can't see my foot, but just like a piano, I've got a sustain pedal hooked up to this keyboard, and I believe if I use that, so I can go back and forth between just a typical two-note, sustain meaning one note at a time, to actually a portamento, which is a really, it's a slide, like that. I can control all of that in the articulation presets up here. If we take the overview away, we can actually change the legato to, there we go, legato long now is on. So you can hear kind of how it does that. Let's see, pedal is on, glide mode, let's try that. So this glide mode that I've turned on, what it's actually doing, and you can see the legato or pedal, basically just means, is it going to do it automatically using the legato patch, I think, or using the pedal, which is what I've been doing. And so I put the pedal on glide mode, and then I can actually set this to, the speed, literally how fast is it going to step down, and then how many steps will it take. Right now it's 12, which is, basically keyword for chromatic. I can change it to major and put in, let's say, it's not exactly the easiest way to put that in. I can't double click on it. Let's put 5 and see what that sounds like. So it's using a major key. Start note means, so it's in the key of G, because I started on a G is what I'm playing up here. And you can follow along if you're a keyboard player. You can follow. You can see the notes down here in this. The blue section are the actual notes that cello patch are able to play. These are like presets, and these are my articulations, the same as what we were looking at earlier. So start note meaning it's taking a major scale based on the start note that I'm playing, which is in this case G. And it's playing, that was a legato, but long legato because I didn't use the pedal. But if I hold the pedal down, it's going to start on G, and it's going to play 5 notes in the G major scale going down. So we can change that to minor. We'll do natural minor, see how that sounds. Not really. Oh, sorry. Not a whole lot of difference there, but if we increase the steps again, we should start to hear some minor notes coming out of here. Natural minor, so that's going to really sound major. Again, we're working with the Aeolian mode as opposed to ionic, but it's going to be the exact same notes. So if we change that to harmonic minor, for example, we should start to hear some pretty interesting, a little bit of an Eastern almost flair to it, right? Same thing, melodic minor. Yeah, put it up to 12, we should start to hear a full scale. Again, all this is very subtle, different, but it makes a big difference when you're actually playing it. So let's change this to, we got one more pentatonic in here. That's going to give it probably antihemitonic, pentatonic, Asian sort of flair to it. Oriental maybe. So really long legatos there. which I don't necessarily love. I don't want to use glide mode for any of this. I just wanted to kind of brag on that. It's a cool. It's really an interesting way of just really intricate way of being able to program this cello and any of the instruments in his library. Chris Hein's got. Where were we? What were we talking about? Okay, so we're actually looking for articulations that we like, that we're going to use for our cello. So let's get our cello here. I've made a copy of it at the end of the track. We're basically, what I've done now is I've taken the same melody line, but instead of just one articulation all the way through, I've put a few different articulations in there. So this one, dynamic expression long, is where we start. Then for a couple of the notes, we go to a lyrical vibrato. Then we go to an accent vibrato for a couple notes. We go all the way up here, which is a spiccato 4, and it gives you a bunch of different options. So we've got 6 different spiccatos we can audition and see if they work for what we're needing. And then we end on a lyrical vibrato. So let's give this a listen now. Or let me play the beginning, and you can hear what it sounds like without any different articulation presets. Play our new cello. Let's audition this part here and hear what this sounds like with some articulations built in. Whoops. Pull it over so we can see. Where did our articulations go? Okay, we heard our spiccato up there, which is a heavy, short staccato style bow stroke. I think it's a little too heavy, so I'm gonna audition some other ones here. Let's try spiccato 1 just to hear what that sounds like, and we'll just listen to that one note. So I almost want this to be a lift, da da da, like that, going back down to that lower note. This is getting better. A little bit lighter on the touch there, but maybe not what we want. Okay, that's pretty nice. I like spiccato 3 quite a bit. I think we already trialed spiccato 4. Spiccato 5, let's see what that... A little too short for me. Very short. Okay, so I'm going to go with 3, and then maybe we back down the actual velocity of this note. Let's get out of this for a sec. And like you can see here, the note velocity is at 53. The following note is also 53. Maybe we play with this a little bit. We bring the velocity, literally how hard we're poking the piano note or virtually pushing the bow onto the string, and see if that makes a difference. We'll back that down to 40. That wasn't a very good example. Okay, that's nice. Let's go back. Oh, I don't think I changed anything. Wonder why. Yeah, like I already tricked myself. The placebo effect is very real. I thought I had made a change. I did not. Let's see if back this down all the way and see if that makes any difference. So I'm not sure it's doing a whole lot with the velocity here, and that might just be something in the settings that I haven't learned yet. But I'm already liking this a lot better. So as you can see, it's a very delicate, intricate process. We get pretty granular here with some of the notes, and this is what is really time-consuming about working with some of these instruments. Now, I'm working with a solo instrument, so I'm going to spend a lot more time on getting this right to my ear than I would with, for example, a giant strings patch. And that's not because strings patches are less important in any way. It's just that when you have 6, 10, 18, I think this is 18 violins playing at the same time. It's hard to hear, but there are articulations available in these patches as well. But they are not going to be nearly as audible because you've got 18 players playing at the same time. And I have to put that in quotes because even a professional string section is never going to play literally at the exact same time. You know, all 18 players are going to be a little bit off. That's what gives it that human feel, the human quality to it. So you know, we can sort of fudge the reality a little bit by not worrying too much about individual articulations. Now, if there's important sections, passages that go da 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 da, we want those first ones to be spiccato or staccato notes, and then that last note da to be sustain or legato or something like that. That's obvious, and that's something I'll program in as we go. But generally speaking, if my violins are playing that melody, then we don't need to worry about using too many different articulations because they're going to sound pretty good anyway. And the other reason for it is typically when I'm using a big patch like this, they're not the only things playing. I'm rarely going to have, just personally, the way I orchestrate, I'm rarely going to have all 18 first violins playing alone without any seconds, without any violas. You know, I might do a full string section by themselves like I've done with some of these in different melody lines in here. But again, typically you're burying these 18 violins with other things going on. You've got the brass up here, you know, that kind of stuff. Another area, so again, going back to what I was saying before, I'm going to spend a lot more time on the solo instruments they're carrying the melody. Especially like my cello, which is the only one in the entire piece where it's playing a solo instrument alone. I do have a solo horn coming in, playing some of the melody up here. It's this nice, beautiful coming in. A little loud. So that was all mod wheel. My performance isn't perfect. I'm not a great horn player or piano player, so it's not perfect, but I can go in there now and edit the modulation, the velocity, all that stuff, and haven't even touched the articulations. If there's some spots in there that I want to be staccato, what I might do is remind myself by just playing that in as best I can. Something like that might tell me when I go back later, okay, that didn't really sound good because we're losing a lot of the body of the note with just the attack. So I might go in there and change the articulation to a staccato, or in this case, a marcato, which is the accent, that's a gagic, a marcato type note in the articulation presets if there's one in my solo horn. Long story short, you know, I don't need to get super granular with a lot of the stuff that I do. I'm sort of writing epic orchestral trailer style music. Which typically isn't really intricately orchestrated. It's got some really cool nuance and some really cool detail, but typically the layering is what makes those types of pieces sound big and good. And apparently it's Christmas Day tomorrow. My computer just blew up. So, you know, I'm not going to be too worried about making every articulation for every single note and every single track 100% accurate, because it doesn't matter. When I bounce this out and get it all mixed and mastered, we won't be able to hear any of that anyway, because there's just so many layers happening. I've got another piece I'm working on that's the opposite, where it is orchestral through and through. I'm trying to go for like an old school John Williams or even older, you know, Errol Flynn type stuff. That does need the perfection, kind of the meticulous placement of articulations to be in the right spot, because it's really there's no other instruments. There's no layers, you know, like an ostinato patch in your cellos. I'm not going to have this stuff going on in them. That was a terrible performance. I apologize, but I'm not going to have that type of thing happening. That's going to cover up a lot of the imperfections, right? I'm just going to have the orchestral instruments themselves. So it has to sound real. It has to sound like real players playing it in a real hall with real music stands and everything. So anyway, long story short, when I have these solo instruments, especially when they're the only instrument playing at any given time, and I've got this airy string glitch patch is what it's called. I can't remember what library that's from, but it's a really pretty, really high, soft string kind of sound that just gives me a little bit of color on the top. perfect for this epic orchestral trailer type music, because rarely are we going to have something just happening by itself. It's just the way it's the style in this genre, and it's the way it works. So we layer things like that, and of course as we get excited here and really start getting at it, what we find is this. Right, all these taiko ensemble, the low booms come in. That's what gives it, again, just another layer. We just keep adding layers and layers and layers. But when we don't have the layers yet, we want to make our stuff sound real. That's the whole point of this, is to get it to sound credible. And so I will go in to the solo cello part, and I'll add in, and let me just drag this over now that we have the completed one. Drop it in. Now I've got some articulation presets in here, and you can see if we play this, it's going to start to sound a little more realistic. I haven't done the second half, the B section of this melody, but you can hear. Once we start layering, it doesn't matter as much if we get all the articulation. That is not correct. Let's see what we happen here with our violas. Need some kind of different articulation to start with, I think. Yep. I'm not sold yet on a viola descant melody that's coming out here, but it's something. Switching between instrument sections, and it's just getting bigger and fuller, and we're changing keys and everything, so that the focus is no longer on an individual instrument, which means the focus is no longer on independent and individual articulations for that instrument. So again, I could get really granular and get really specific, and I could just be doing this all day every day for the rest of my life, to get it to sound like a full, real, actual orchestra that even the best orchestrator who works with a digital audio workstation would never be able to tell the difference. But the truth is, I'm not writing this for a professional Hollywood film score composer who works with a digital audio workstation. I'm writing it for people like me who aren't quite that nuanced with my hearing. And I think I have a better ear than most people, the average person listening to this. So if I'm happy with something that sounds real, to me, the vast majority of people listening are going to be happy with it as well. All right, that's all for today. Thanks for listening, and tune in next time.